offer.
Right.
But then obviously he'd had offers from Saudi, he'd had offers obviously to go back to Barcelona. And the Barcelona one kind of really worried me because obviously it pulls on the heartstrings for him. He never really got to say a proper goodbye at Barcelona, so that was the one that really worried me. But then, you know, it was then down to him to decide.
David Beckham has said it clearly. I hate him. 4 words, simple, direct. From a man known for grace and diplomacy, they hit hard. What would make one of football's greatest players say those words? Today, we reveal the 6 footballers who pushed him to the edge. These men saw past the perfect hair and billion-dollar brand. They found the raw, angry competitor underneath. At 50, Beckham is reflecting on his career without holding back. He's naming the people he couldn't stand. The ones who made him feel fear, rage, and frustration. Some were rivals, some were teammates. One was his best friend. This video uncovers the 6 adversaries who shaped Beckham's journey from scapegoat to legend. If you're enjoying this story, give this video some hype, like it, subscribe. We're about to take you into places Beckham rarely goes. Let's start with the man who changed everything. The one who made Beckham the most hated person in a nation. It was 1998, the World Cup in France. David Beckham was 23 years old and representing his country on the biggest stage in football. England faced Argentina in the round of 16. The match was already charged with tension because of history, the Falklands War. Diego Maradona's Hand of God goal in 1986. This wasn't just about football, it was about national pride. It was about vengeance. Beckham represented the New England, blonde, handsome, modern, cool Britannia. He was the future. Argentina sent Diego Simeone, a tough captain, a man who would do whatever it took to win. Simeone looked at Beckham and saw opportunity. He saw a young player with emotions he could exploit. Early in the second half, Simeone tackled Beckham from behind. He stood over him and provoked him. Beckham gave him a small flick of his calf. Barely anything, but Simeone collapsed dramatically. He was acting, and the referee believed him. Beckham was sent off. Later, Beckham said, "Simeone tricked me." To Beckham, Simeone wasn't tough. He was a liar, a cheat, someone who exploited the rules. Simeone even admitted it years later. He said he baited Beckham, and the red card was soft, but necessary. He knew what he was doing. The consequences were brutal, immediate, devastating. The English press turned on Beckham with ferocity. Tabloids printed his face on dartboards. Pubs hung effigies of him and set them on fire. He received death threats, real threats, the kind that needed police protection. For an entire season, every away ground in England booed him. They chanted his name as an insult. He was the most hated man in his own country because of one moment of naivety. Beckham hated Simeone for this, not just for the red card, but for the trap, for the calculation, for showing him that the football world had a darkness to it that he didn't fully understand, a cynicism, a willingness to manipulate and destroy. But this hatred fueled something. It became fuel. Beckham spent the next 3 years earning his redemption, and on a night in Greece in 2001, with England needing qualification, Beckham took a free kick. The ball curved, it dipped, it found the net. That goal was as much about Simeone as it was about Greece. It was Beckham saying, "You tried to destroy me, but I'm still here." The next man on this list is different. He didn't trick Beckham. He terrified him. In 1995, Sir Alex Ferguson sent young Beckham on loan to Preston North End, not as a reward, as a punishment. Ferguson wanted to toughen him up. The academy was too soft. Manchester United's training ground was too protected. Preston played in the lower divisions, where football was still violent, where men still believed you could win through fear. That's where Beckham met Terry Hurlock. Hurlock played for Fulham at that time, but his legend came from Millwall. He was known as Terry Warlock because he played like a man possessed. He had a reputation that terrified experienced players. Young Beckham didn't stand a chance against that. Beckham admitted something rare. He said, "I was terrified." Those words reveal vulnerability because Beckham was already talented, already skilled, but none of that mattered to Hurlock. What mattered was how much pain you could take, how hard you could hit, how little you cared about your own safety or anyone else's. Hurlock had retired from a match after breaking his own leg in a tackle. His own leg. He broke it trying to hurt someone. He didn't care. That's the kind of man Hurlock was, a remnant of an older football era. Beckham couldn't compete with Hurlock on Hurlock's terms, so he didn't try. He explicitly said, "I stayed away from him all game, for obvious reasons." He drifted wide. He dropped deep. He moved away whenever possible. It was pure survival instinct. Nothing more, nothing less. Despite his fear, Beckham scored a trademark free kick. His technical skill transcended Herlock's physical threat completely. That moment taught Beckham something crucial about football. You don't have to beat the monster. You outmaneuver it. You use intelligence. You use skill. You use positioning. Herlock represented an older era of football, an era that's now extinct. Beckham's loan spell at Preston was the bridge between violent and technical football. Next is a man who didn't hurt Beckham or trick him. He simply erased him. Jens Jeremies was a midfielder for Bayern Munich and Germany. Beckham described facing him as annoying and frustrating, but those soft words hide something darker. Tactical suffocation. Jeremies was a specialist. His job was to follow Beckham everywhere, to deny him space, to disrupt his rhythm. Beckham's entire game was built on rhythm. Receive the ball, look up, deliver a cross. Beautiful, precise, world class. But Jeremies wouldn't let him have that rhythm. He marked Beckham constantly. He used low-level physical contact to unsettle him. He bruised his shins in every encounter. He was relentless. The 1999 Champions League final was the perfect example. Bayern Munich wanted to stop Beckham completely. They assigned Jens Jeremies to do it specifically. For 90 minutes, Jeremies followed Beckham. He tracked him. He shadowed him. He gave Beckham no moments of peace, no pockets of space. The match went into injury time. United won on a header. Everyone remembers Solskjaer's goal, but Bayern's tactical plan nearly worked. For most of that match, Beckham was neutralised. Sir Alex Ferguson understood the threat. Ferguson spoke about Jeremies specifically. He knew that Jeremies had the discipline to shadow Beckham for 90 full minutes. Few players in Europe could do that. Few players had the focus and the physicality. Jeremies was elite at being annoying. For a player like Beckham, being man-marked relentlessly is professional suffocation. Beckham didn't just want to play, he wanted to control the game completely. He wanted to dictate rhythm entirely. Jeremies took that away from him, so Beckham was forced to drift inside, to move centrally, to abandon his natural position. That cluttered United's shape. That disrupted their entire system. Beckham's hatred of Jeremies wasn't the hatred of competition. It was the hatred of impotence. He was being systematically neutralised, not because he was playing poorly, but because Jeremies was playing perfectly. The tactical brilliance made Beckham feel powerless, and that's what he hated, the feeling of being erased. Now we jump forward to 2025. Beckham is 50 years old. He's retired from playing. He's a global icon, but he's also still deeply connected to Manchester United. And in 2025, two young players disappointed him so badly that he was willing to publicly shame them. Manchester United had a disastrous season, finished 15th in the Premier League. The club was humiliated. The club needed to repair its image, so they sent the team on a post-season tour of Asia to make money, to connect with fans overseas, to remind people that United is still a big club. But during that tour, two incidents happened. Amad Diallo was filmed flashing his middle finger to fans outside the team hotel. He claimed he was reacting to insults about his mother, but the optics were terrible. A well-paid professional abusing fans. After the worst season in decades, it looked like entitlement. It looked like disrespect. Then Alejandro Garnacho got into a physical altercation with a fan. The fan was filming him aggressively. Garnacho pushed him. Another incident, another sign of disrespect, another moment where young players seemed to not care about the Manchester United badge. Beckham came out publicly. He clearly slammed them. He said their behaviour was not acceptable. He said they didn't understand what the badge meant. And that's the key. Beckham grew up in an era where the badge meant everything, where players respected fans because fans paid their wages, where humility was the currency, where you signed every autograph, where you shaved your head when told. Garnacho and Diallo represent a different generation, Gen Z, raised on social media, viewing fans as content creators, as paparazzi intruding on personal space. There's a fundamental cultural divide here. Beckham sees Garnacho and Diallo as vandalising the work of previous generations. They're disrespecting the institution that made them famous. So Beckham's hatred of them is unique. It's not personal, it's institutional, it's protective. He hates that the standards have dropped. He hates that young players don't appreciate what they've been given. He hates the decay of the values he believed in. In a way, his anger here is disappointment masquerading as hate. Then there's Gary Neville, and this one is strange. Gary Neville is Beckham's best friend in football. They came through the academy together. They won the treble together. They're brothers, essentially, yet Beckham admitted hating living with him. Living with him? How does that happen? The answer reveals something real about Beckham. He has obsessive-compulsive disorder affecting his need for order and cleanliness. Beckham wanted silence in his room. He wanted to listen to music in peace. Gary Neville is opposite. He's always talking, always moving. He throws things everywhere. His mess is his energy. Then there was the 5 in the morning wake-up. Neville would wake at 5, full of energy. Beckham was trying to sleep, trying to prepare for a match. Beckham said the situation drove him crazy. They only roomed together for 6 months before they had to be separated. For their friendship's sake, this hate is important because it humanises Beckham. He wasn't above petty domestic annoyances. Even global icons get frustrated by messy roommates. It also shows how intense football camps are. When you're confined to a small space for weeks, minor idiosyncrasies become major irritations. Neville's inability to sit still clashed with Beckham's need for control and calm, and for a moment they hated each other for it. The final man on this list is different. He represents something Beckham couldn't change, something he couldn't overcome through skill, something that exposed his one real limitation. Roberto Carlos played for Real Madrid and Brazil. He was a defender with the speed of a sprinter and the strength of a heavyweight boxer. He was a physical anomaly. Beckham faced him in the Champions League, and he described it as a nightmare, a literal nightmare. The challenge was straightforward and simple and clear. If Beckham attacked Carlos, Carlos would catch him because he was faster and stronger. If Beckham defended, Carlos would get past him easily. Beckham was elite, world-class, but he lacked elite pace. That was his one real vulnerability. In a match at Old Trafford, Roberto Carlos terrorised United's right flank. Beckham couldn't beat him for pace, couldn't catch him. It was impossible. Beckham said the word. Impossible to defend or attack against him. The psychological weight of this rivalry was real. Beckham hated Carlos because Carlos exposed him, made him feel inadequate, made him realise that no amount of training could fix his lack of explosive speed. Some limitations are permanent. Some weaknesses can never be overcome or trained away. But then, something changed. Beckham joined Real Madrid in 2003, and Carlos became his teammate. The nightmare became his greatest asset. Suddenly, they weren't enemies, they were allies. Their combination became lethal. Beckham's precision, Carlos's power. Goalkeepers couldn't handle it. There's a moment Beckham remembers, meeting Carlos in a hotel lobby. Carlos just smiled and laughed. Beckham didn't know what to do. He was intimidated, even then. But that smile meant something. It meant they could be partners instead of rivals. So what does all of this mean? 6 men, 6 relationships. What do they reveal? Simeone tricked him and taught him about injustice and deception. Herlock terrified him and taught him about survival instinct. Jeremy's frustrated him and taught him about impotence. Garnacho and Diallo disappointed him and taught him about institutional decay. Neville irritated him and taught him about control. Carlos exposed him and taught him about limitation itself. All of these hates were functional and purposeful. They all served a distinct purpose. They all made Beckham stronger. They all forced him to evolve and adapt. Simeone's trick led to his greatest redemption moment. Herlock's violence taught him to use skill. Jeremy's man-marking forced him to adapt his style completely. Garnacho and Diallo made him the guardian of Manchester United's core values. Neville's chaos showed him the cost of his need for control. And Carlos showed him that sometimes your greatest enemy becomes your most powerful ally. Beckham didn't just survive these relationships, he used them. He turned them into fuel. And the man who once was tricked by Simeone and made the most hated person in England, he became one of the most respected athletes in the world. At 50, Beckham is reflecting on his career with clarity. The anger is still there. The competitive fire hasn't completely died. But there's something else too. There's gratitude. Because every man who made him feel hate also made him stronger. Every rival who tried to stop him also pushed him forward. The friction of greatness. That's what built David Beckham. Not the trophies, not the sponsorships, not the perfect image, but the men he had to overcome, the men he had to hate, the men who forced him to become better. And now, at the end of his career, Beckham can see it clearly. Those 6 men weren't obstacles. They were teachers. They weren't enemies. They were mirrors. And by looking at them, by battling them, by sometimes hating them, Beckham discovered who he truly was. A competitor, a survivor, a man who turned pain into purpose. That's the real story. That's the complete story of what his career reveals. Not hate, but real growth. Not enemies, but real evolution.